working with Joomla since even before it was Joomla. She's a Joomla developer, and she's also author of the book, the official Joomla
This is a
book.
demonstration
Yes.
of Ustream
Okay.
Producer.
I have a new, the second edition should be in rough cuts by like the end of next week. It'll be probably in print. They just got the front matter for me on Friday, so it takes 100 days to be printed from the time you send the final thing in. So, but it'll be e-version will be available, and if you get rough cuts, all updated for Joomla 3. Okay, I just did so many screenshots, and believe me, it was a moving target. It was like, oh, do all those again. But it'll be in the rough cut system at Pearson. Like you can buy, what did I do though? Now it's okay? That's okay? Okay, so the rough cut system is an ebook, and you get like the current version, and then when the copy editor finishes, they'll upload the next version. But you get the final. If you buy the rough cut, you get the every update, you get it. So you get the final version too.
I'm getting a couple of chapters this week.
Yeah, I know. I have to be nice to Scott because he's going to be reviewing it. So I shouldn't say that on screen. But yeah, that's exciting. It's really exciting, and it's yeah. So like almost everybody was here in the last meeting, right?
Yes.
David's actually built a complicated. He should be giving the talk because he's actually built a complicated Joomla application on the platform. So I'll just start off. I'm going to start off by saying what is the platform, even though we talked a little bit about it before. So the platform is that giant folder. Basically, I would consider it, if you go to the platform repository at GitHub, this is what you're going to, and you download the zip file, or you take a pull request, this is what you're, not a pull request, if you clone it, this is what you're going to get. So it's the Joomla folder, it's the legacy folder. This Compat folder, I don't know, it showed up like a month ago, and it's kind of, from what I can tell, what they're doing there is like there's some 5.4 stuff, and the platform is 5.3.1 or above. So but there are a few, from what I can tell, that's what's going on with Compat. There's like one file in there right now. PHP Mailer, we're still using the UTF-8 library and SimplePy. For people who did not notice, I'm sure most people don't know this, in the CMS, we're no longer using SimplePy, we're using JFeed, which hopefully will transition over to the platform in the near future. But that was a package that was a work in progress, and the platform not quite ready yet for the platform, but a million times better than SimplePy. SimplePy is a feed reader. It basically render them.
It turns XML into objects.
Yeah, it gets the XML, turns them into objects, and then we output. And so now we're using JFeed to do that. I love that class. It's like great. The reason we switched, what happened was with Joomla 3, we're supporting 5.3 or above, and so we're like, oh great, now let's start testing Joomla 3. Let's actually look at all the layouts with error reporting on, and we just saw so many strict errors with SimplePy, and we knew that Lewis was working on JFeed and that it would be in the platform in the near future. So we looked at it and said, for the simple stuff we do in the CMS, we don't take multiple feeds and merge them together. We don't have image feeds. We don't have iTunes feeds. We don't support any of that. We just want to take a standard text-based feed and pull it into the CMS. What is in the core library there that he has already written is fine for that purpose. And we didn't even import all of his classes, his subclasses, because we were like, that would be new features. This was just a refactoring to straight in replace SimplePy. But SimplePy is still there if you're using it. But I would definitely take a look at JFeed if you're using
a ViewStream producer.
if you're using the platform. So, but it's in the. This is part of the confusing, both the great and confusing thing about why we need a platform, and why we have we separate it into two projects. So I don't know if everybody realizes that now there's two projects that are both within the bigger Joomla project. There's the CMS and the platform. And the reason that we did that is because these are really two different things. The platform is the APIs, and they could be used to build many different applications of various kinds. And the CMS is an application that uses the platform. And this, in my opinion, I think we were all a little bit nervous about it, what it would mean. But in my opinion, it has been great for both the platform and for the CMS, because in the old days, the platform people who wanted to write really cool new code and new libraries, new packages, were really inhibited because they couldn't, because the question would always be, well, are we going to use that in the CMS? And if the answer was no, then it was like, why are we putting it into the platform, or why is anybody spending time on it? And the truth is, people work on Joomla because it's fun and because it's useful for what they're working on. And a lot of what the high-end developers are working on is not the CMS. The majority of what they work on is not the CMS.
This is a demonstration of ViewStream producer.
We get a class like JImage, which is one of the classes in the platform that is not used at all in the CMS. It would be fantastic if someone would write the code in the CMS to use it, but in terms of the roadmap, such as it is for the CMS, updating incorporating JImage has never been like the #1 priority. It would be a great project for someone to take on for 3.1, is to say, let's incorporate JImage into the CMS in appropriate places. Let's put it so all the modules can display the intro text images when they're pulling stuff from articles, for example. Someone could write that code right now because the class is there in the platform, even though it's not used in the CMS. So the great thing for the platform is they can write new code. They don't have to have this standard. Is it going to be immediately used in CMS? And no one's ever going to say, why are you wasting time on something we don't need for the CMS? Which has been a great source of liberation for people, and it has made people happy to be contributing to the platform and to be writing great and fun and interesting code that will be really useful for that. And it's made it possible for us to do things like our platform Summer of Code projects this summer, which I hope that most of them end up inside the actual, one of the problems with Summer of Code is students write this code, it's 10 weeks. 10 weeks isn't really long enough to write code that's platform ready. I mean, if you have like a senior developer like Louis or Andrew or Rob write something serious, it takes them months, and they're really experienced people. But it's partly because they're really careful, right? They write at a really, really careful level. They test, they do all these things. 10 weeks, it's not really completely possible to do a complex package. So this summer, with the Summer of Code, we did try to pick projects for students that would not take a year to write for the most part. So we're hoping there's one that looks very close to getting pulled into the platform, which is the JGoogle package. So it's basically a package for accessing the GData APIs, the Google APIs. So he wrote packages he wrote the upper level classes, and then he implemented the specific classes for Picasa, for Maps, for AdSense, maybe one other one. Well, the thing is that's going to happen is because he's written, remember I showed you, if you were here before, I was like, there's the form folder, and then underneath there's the fields folder and the rules folder. So he's written that form, like the Google folder, and he's written the OAuth so everybody can for those Google APIs where you need to authenticate, which is not all of them, you can do that. But then he has like the sub classes, and he's done basic ones, some of which are Picasso's incredibly complex. But then other people, the goal is for other people to fill in the additional APIs from Google, because Google has about 95 APIs. And then the goal is also not just to have, like we already had the GitHub API, so you can write applications using data from GitHub. So, you know, would we like Microsoft to have API for some of their, to write a package to access some of their applications? Do we have another student project for Facebook? Yes. Do we have a student project for LinkedIn? Yes. Do we have a student project for Twitter? Yes. So we would like more of those, right? For the major, we don't want everything in the world. And sometimes people could just write their own that they'll import, but,
So you're talking about having one cleaned up, perfect APIs rather than having
a demonstration of
Exactly.
Ustream Producer.
One site that's Facebook in 3 locations.
Yes.
And
they're fighting each other, exactly. So we have one coherent API, and then extension developers can add their own. All they have to do is the secret sauce, right? Whatever it is. Like there's 50 Twitter extensions in the JET at least, and I have the ones I like. I like the way this particular module works or this particular plugin works, and I prefer it to some other one. It has nothing to do with how they connect to Twitter.
This is a demonstration.
They all successfully connect to Twitter, but it's something about how they've done the layout or how they've thought about the interface or whatever it is that works for me, right? So extension developers will just be able to concentrate on that stuff because they won't have to keep reinventing the wheel. The same kind of, how do I authorize? How am I going to store the data? You'll authorize, eventually you'll be able to just store, you know, your OAuth data, right? And it'll be there. So, and actually the cool thing was that Aaron, who was doing the Google, and Diana, who was doing Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, collaborated on they wrote an OAuth package. So, because it has, some of them need OAuth 1A, and some of them need OAuth 2, and we actually need OAuth 1, which is like a separate thing. So, there was like collaboration there. So everybody, there's an OAuth package, so everybody has access to OAuth, and not even just those specific, you know, the Google, not just JGoogle doesn't have its own OAuth. There's this like universal OAuth that you can use. So that's kind of the goal of the platform, actually, is to encourage that kind of collaboration and building shared resources, and for even though you might be in competition, like on the business side, to still kind of be able to work together in a kind of Drupal-y way to a certain extent. We don't want to say there's one cart to rule them all, but we want to say maybe there's one package that will handle connecting to gateways that everybody who's writing their own special carts will use, and everybody will save that work. And when something changes, you know, when AuthNet changes something in their API, we just have to change it once, and it'll fix for everybody. Yes.
One of the project about to begin for one of the alternative currencies. One of the things I'm insisting on
demonstration of Ustream Producer
is a universal plugin that does the snapping to everything in place.
See?
Because why should we have the same gateway in 6 different carts? It makes no sense.
Right, exactly. We should have it once. I think actually e-commerce is one of the places where there should be developer collaboration going on, because everybody's going to need, you know, and there's a list. I remember back in the old days in VirtueMart, like back in when the fork first happened, and people would be like every day in the VirtueMart forum saying, do you have this gateway? No. Okay, so write a plug. So,
One other thing that I found really good about breaking up the platform is if you look at how the platform and CMS communicate with these autoloaders,
yeah.
the CMS can replace classes from the platform.
Yeah.
It's also a great example for developers.
Exactly.
You no longer need to go in and put little hacks in the index files and load your own classes.
Right.
You use load your autoloader and stick it up in front of everything else.
Exactly.
And you can completely replace.
This is a
certain little bits of
demonstration of
functionality,
Ustream
Yeah.
Producer.
breaking everything.
Exactly, exactly. And it's really, it really encourages good practices, and it's so clean right now. The platform's really clean code, and the CMS, like, we're really trying to make that code be clean and not do hacky things, and just really, you know, when we need, or so the other side of why the separation is great. That's why the separation is great for platform developers, but the separation is great for the CMS too, because we have the CMS folder, right? That's the CMS has its own libraries, its own library, and we need certain things in the CMS that are not platform appropriate. And so, like, we need, for example, a list of menu items. So menu items, that's like really a CMS idea. It's not a platform idea. And so the platform team would always be kind of aggravated. Why do we have to have these things that don't really make sense for anything besides the CMS in the platform? So now we moved stuff out. And now what CMS, the people who develop the CMS are starting to see is we can actually write, not only are we kind of taking these leftovers from the platform, we can actually write stuff that just works for us. Like, we do not have to write the universal thing. If we want to have a contact field that you can access from anywhere, we can just write it, because the CMS has contacts, and we want to be able to get a list of contacts. So let's just do it.
This is a demonstration of Ustream Producer.
Menu items, you're talking about, are menu items being treated as menu items or as content under UML?
On unified content?
Yeah.
Unified content abandons the idea of a menu item, right? Menus are not part of the platform. Menus are not part of the platform. The platform has new routing, a new routing system. The platform menu is gone, bye-bye from the platform, because it's a CMS concept. And a unified content model, there's no item IDs. So, because every content item has a unique ID. So it's just a different, there's kind of a philosophy. I mean, I think one of the things that will happen in the next 6 months is we have to really think about what unified content. So one of the things that will happen in the platform is we will have this idea of a unified content model, and we have to think about, like, what does that really mean for the CMS?
Now, would taxonomy be under platform or CMS?
If there was a taxonomy, it would be in the platform.
Good.
That's what that's what I would think. But if the platform doesn't like it, like, they don't think JFeed is ready for the platform, we can just make our own JFeed, right? So if we decided we have some taxonomy thing we like, and they're like, no, it's not really da-da, but it's still good code, it's just not really ready, or whatever.
That would solve the menu issue. That's how menus are really should be handled on the platform.
Well,
taxonomy.
No, it's a different, you have to totally get away from this menu idea. So, although I do have in my UCM application I'm going to show, I do have a content type called navigation. So that's one way to handle it, right? So, yes, Gary.
One thing to keep in mind, the platform developers don't reject features because they don't like them.
Yeah.
They think they're bad. They reject them because they don't want to maintain them.
Yes.
They take them, they have to maintain them.
Yes.
And if it's something that has no relevance to their life, why put it there?
Right. If it's not going to help people at the most abstract level build on the platform, if it's really going to be specifically for a specific kind of application, then the question is always going to be, why is it in the platform? So, I mean, you need to have some things, but other things don't really belong in the platform. They really belong at the application level. And I could give you a whole other discussion I have about whether we should have a collection of handy classes that many people developing on the platform would probably want to have, that might not be in the core platform, but that they could download. I kind of think that might be a good idea. But right now, what I usually say to people, and I kind of tease the platform developers about this sometimes, because I'm like, you know, the whole idea is people are supposed to be building on the platform, but what are they going to do? They're just going to copy the code from the CMS. So, like, for authentication, if you want to do a quick and easy authentication on the platform, the easiest thing to do is copy the authentication code from the CMS, because right now we don't have that. There's not implementation of authentication in the the platform, but also there's some classes that are kind of CMS classes that they are application classes. They're not platform classes, but a lot of applications need. So I kind of think there's a middle level out there that we probably want to provide some code for, and maybe we'll make like a repository even for people to share or something, you know. Because I think in terms of promoting the platform and promoting people doing more advanced development, I think that would be helpful. Just my point of view on that. So I think it's been great. The whole thing was this week, if you were reading the mailing list, and if you know, last week when we had Pizza, Bugs, and Fun, and there was one issue that came up, and people were struggling really to solve it, and the solution that we came up with actually requires like a new, a really kind of new architectural thing, which is a layout, a shared layout, and kind of like a shared, like a plugin, or like basically, it hasn't been merged yet, but if it's merged, there'll be a new folder in the CMS called Layouts, and you'll be able to put things that, like, just little snippets of layout code that you need in different places, and you'll be able to inject them, and it's going to be awesome.
This is a demonstration of Ustream Producer.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, but it'll be like, in this case, have people looked at Joomla 3? How many people have installed Joomla 3? Mike has. Okay, so in Joomla 3, there's filters on the left side. The filters are on the left side of the administrative layout, and the way they were coming in was causing a bug, and it's also not HMVC compliant. So this was the solution that Yannick came up with, and if it all, it's going to be really great because we'll be able to. No. No, it's still sitting there. Oh, this is the second one. This is not the one with just the, there are two things. This is the bigger one. This is the one that's more architectural.
But the other one was the one that everybody noticed.
Right, it was the one that aggravated people the most, but yeah, and because it's visual, it's more visual, and this was more, well, you can't, the other bug is the bug that says if you have a filter selected, you can't get to the second page of any grid, basically. So like articles or extensions or whatever it is, you can't get to the second page. So this is how he solved it. Now I'm going to go into the technical issues of that, but it's brilliant. I think it's really smart. Anyway, but that's what I'm saying is that the CMS, it's become much more liberated in being able to build the things that the CMS needs as an application. To really say there's Joomla the platform and there's Joomla the CMS application, and we are now free to build things for the Joomla CMS application specifically. And we don't have to worry about, is this going to work for someone wanting to build a game on the Joomla platform, right? No, we don't care. All we want to do is build a class, build a package that works for people in the CMS. So to me, it's actually in some ways been way more liberating for the CMS in the long term than for the platform team, because the platform team still has to deal with the fact that the CMS is their largest customer, right? So the reason the platform runs 3% of the web, so 2.9% of that is the CMS, 0.1% of that is everything else. So so long as that's true, that's why we have the whole legacy system, because the truth is, if it would be terrible for the platform if the CMS broke because of a change in the platform. So, and that's part of being a serious platform too, is that you do have to deal with your actual users. So what is it when we talk about platform applications? That's what this is supposed to be about. So the platform exists. It's this set of folders out there within the library folder, and the CMS is
This
actually
is a demonstration of Ustream Producer.
3 web applications built on the platform. It's the front end, the back end, and the installer are actually 3 separate, totally distinct and independent applications that each of which runs on the Joomla platform. And the CMS nowadays includes many, many CLI applications also, which are built on the Joomla platform. So for example, there's a lot of cron jobs that you can schedule in
This is a
there. The
demonstration
updater
of
runs
Ustream Producer.
is a separate application that runs on the Joomla platform. And there's many other so within the CMS, there's actually already many platform applications. But what we want to also see out in the world is other applications running on the Joomla platform that are not the Joomla CMS. So, you look like you're gonna say something. Okay, so we know in the Joomla CMS, if you're used to it, you start with J application.
This is a demonstration
That was the traditional
Ustream
way of doing
Producer.
things. Now in the platform, J application is basically a legacy concept, and we've separated it out into 3 different auto-loaded things. J application web, which eventually the CMS will run on. J application CLI, which is for command line applications of various types, and J daemon, application daemon, which, yeah, I mean, it's what it is. I don't know that we're actually that. Probably some people are, I don't know if you're using it, but obviously someone must be using it because they wrote it. Yes.
In 2.5, is the cron there?
Yeah, well, you can always run, what do you mean is there cron there?
I want to run a cron to, let's say,
We don't have a scheduler.
If you go in the CLI,
Yeah.
there's an indexer for Finder, which
Yeah.
index all the documents.
Yeah,
That's where you take that
Yeah,
job and you run it as a cron.
you just load it as a cron
Demonstration
job.
of Ustream
Yeah.
Producer.
Yeah, you have to go install it on your server.
It's cron, okay.
Yeah, so,
I'm trying to build a system that says 3 days after a private message goes out,
yes,
if no one has opened up, send an email reminder of a private message.
exactly. Well, that is what you would write a CLI application. Let me just pull up
Okay.
the Joomla CMS, and I'll show you what I mean.
See me in a couple days.
This
Yeah.
is a demonstration
We have a
of
ton of,
Ustream Producer.
I want to open a new window.
I say we, I mean we.
So
I gotta deal with cron.
in the Joomla CMS, I wasn't really going to show the Joomla CMS, but now that I'm doing it, if you look in the CLI folder, we actually already have, well, I added a new one this morning. This is my example one, but the first one, but because of Brian. And
This is a
but we
demonstration
have,
of
these are
Ustream Producer.
command line jobs that you could schedule. We don't have a scheduler. We'd love to have a scheduler in the CMS. I would love to have a UI in the CMS to schedule.
Give us a couple of weeks, so we have to do it.
Do it and then contribute it. We need it for 3.1. So I'm putting you down on the list for 3.1. The scheduler from Scott.
2.5, then we'll move it up to 3.1.
Okay. Well, it's not, the thing is we're not adding features to 2.5 because we're in long-term support.
Right.
So you're ready for 2.5, but then put it over
This is
to
a
3
demonstration
and then,
of Ustream Producer.
yes, Mike?
So for, say, an extension developer that wants to port an extension to a standalone product, okay? You build it on the platform.
Yes.
And is this where if I had event triggers, multiple event triggers, for cron jobs to trigger, this is where I would put them?
Yes.
This would be the most logical?
That would be the most logical place. I think it makes sense. This is in the CMS now. I think it makes
This is a
sense. I just kind of
Ustream Producer.
tried to think about what do you do when you have a lot of different Joomla applications all at the same time in the same instance on a server. So I actually think you should have a CLI folder and a web folder and, you know, kind of put within each. And my preference might have been to even put more folders here because once we have like 30 of these, it's going to be messy. So
Essentially, we're building, you know, combination of the equivalent of
Demonstration
rules and
of
triggers
Ustream
into Drupal
Producer.
into components, so you can fire off things that you want to do based on whatever events or triggers or rules that happens.
Well, but that's what we do already. So we have either hooks or we have events, right? So you can trigger a CLI. Well, see, there's a whole thing about how web applications interact with the CLI applications. And I think that's kind of like the territory we have to cope with right now. For example, we have some goals, I mean,
Of Ustream Producer.
for the CMS in terms of some other independent applications we need, like an asset fixer for people with broken asset tables. And also, one of the things that Jay and Beyond this year we talked about is like a thing for removing, for a site reset, basically, to remove all the data from a site but leave the site there. So that would be like, the easiest way to do that is with a command line application, but then it's like, if the whole point is to have it be a push button,
This is a
how are you going to
demonstration
trigger
of
that?
Ustream
So
Producer.
it's a little, we need to kind of deal with that. So actually, like, I have an asset fix application, but I made it a web application, which doesn't really make sense, but it does mean you can put a URL. So all you have to do is click the URL and it runs. So it's like, so I made that, the idea of that application that I wrote, because I had so many people pinging me saying my assets don't work. So I just wrote a thing to clean it up. And I was like, what can I do?
This is
People can
a
just put it in their
demonstration of
folder and then they
Ustream
just go
Producer.
there and it runs. So, but I think we need to figure that out. We definitely need to figure out how that's going to work. So like some of these, one is the Finder Indexer, which if you have a big site, you might want to run that like every day or every 6 hours or whatever, just to update your Finder index, depending how you're using Finder. Garbage cron is just, cleaning up garbage files,
a
cleaning out your
demonstration of Ustream
cache,
Producer.
most of all. Delete files is one that will delete, sometimes when the CMS updates, we remove files, especially like with 3.0, we tried to get rid of a lot of unused files that were left over from 1.5. So delete files attempts to go through a list of removed files and delete them. It's very cautious. So it may not delete everything that should, we always tend to be on the side of caution. So it's not going to over delete, but it's handy, yes.
So right now, currently, to run these existing cron jobs, there's no like web view that you
No.
can trigger for these.
No, you have to go to your command line. So that's a problem because a lot of people on shared hosting don't have access to the command line at all. So you do have cron. One reason there's a lot of crons is because a lot of shared hosting does let you schedule cron jobs, so if you know the name. So it would be kind of nice if we would probably document a bit better that these exist so that people know that they can schedule them. But that's what they are. So yeah. And as I said, I think we'll see more. We'll see more. Andrew has one that I love. I love it because what it is just a cron job that way he has implemented it. There's a plugin group. He has a plugin group called Cron, and so it just uses plugins, and he has one cron job that runs that pings all the plugins. So every 6 hours or every day, it goes and runs all of your plugins, and then your plugins can do a lot of this work. So like I help people a lot with slow queries, and everybody knows one of the worst queries we have is the category list query and the articles model in the front end. And one of the ways you can make that query run a lot faster is to unpublish. Instead of, like, what we do is we just say, is it published but past expiration date, and we treat it as unpublished. But that's a check. I mean, that's work to check that on all these things. Whereas if you could just query based on state, you wouldn't have to check each one individually. So would really like
This
to
is a
have a
demonstration of
plugin
Ustream
that would
Producer.
actually unpublish things that are past the expiration date. And so my idea is let's make a, first I was saying let's just make a cron job to do that. But then I saw what Andrew did and I was like, we can just make a plugin to do that and it'll just be pinged. And so it's like a universal, it's like install one cron job and then it'll run everything else. So I think that's what I would do. I think Andrew is cool with putting it into the
This is a
core. So
demonstration
I'm
of
going to argue,
Ustream
for
Producer.
3.1, I'm going to argue for that.
There's the 3.1s here.
I know. Well, see, but that's great because we're so close, right? We're already thinking like what should be in 3.1. So, so you can have, as I said, the 3 different kinds of applications. So Brian was saying last night how easy it was to clear cache at the command line for Drupal. I was like, well, I can't let that
Demonstration of
stay,
Ustream Producer.
just sit there. So I wrote a little CLI to clear cache. And so this is just an example of what a really simple command line application in Joomla might look like. And it's just, and I put the error, this is just error reporting because I wanted to understand what was happening. So basically in the CLI applications,
This is
you
a
need to include your
demonstration of
defines.
Ustream Producer.
You need to figure out, define your base, right? You need to get the framework. In this case, I included this, I don't know why, but I included, well, because I guess I was doing it in the CMS, so in the CMS folder. So I included the CMS libraries. But then this is the application itself. So it's just, I made class clear cache extends J application
This is a
CLI.
demonstration of Ustream
And then
Producer.
I just made one function. This is the do execute function and or method, and this is like the core of all these applications is do execute. So and all I had, because we have, as I said earlier, this great API, it's not hard. I just got the cache, cleared it, and I'm done. And then down at the bottom to get it to run, you just, J application CLI get instance
This is a
of
demonstration
this class,
of
clear
Ustream
cache,
Producer.
execute. Then it's going to go up to your do execute and do it.
Is this the beginning of douche?
Well, that's what he was like, it's so easy. I was like, okay, we can deal with that challenge. We can deal with that. Right, So now we just need a little script to make sure wherever you type it, it'll go to the CLI folder and find what you need. But we already had one to clear expired cache, but I was like, that's not good enough.
This is a
We had to clear
demonstration
everything.
of Ustream Producer.
So this clears everything.
Especially using adds factor that is smart and you can clear the cache to make a change.
So this is, I think it's like, this is what's so great about Joomla, the Joomla platform. I mean, the fact that first off, we have this whole J application family of classes that we can use, and then the fact that we have this great API that we can use to build these applications, it's just like
This is a
phenomenal.
demonstration of Ustream
So,
Producer.
but Andy and I were talking, and actually a lot of the platform talks are about how to build CLI applications. CLI applications are so dead easy. Once you see, you just really need to do this. And I didn't even need to do, I just copied, the truth is I just copied and pasted most of it. So I didn't need this, I didn't need that. I just really needed to define the path and to pull in the platform. So,
This is a
so that's my
demonstration of
that's my
Ustream
example of command line. But actually, it's cool that we can build on the command line, but it's really cool that we can also build web applications. So I think for a while everybody was just trying to publicize the fact that you could build on the command line. So I'm just going to show you. It should be right here. This is actually using the UCM class that that Louis and
This is a
Rob, mainly Rob,
demonstration of
Rob talked
Ustream
about last
Producer.
year here at Joomla Day, New York. And it's, so I decided I wanted to build an application using their, using that proposed set of classes. And so it's a web application. As you can see, it looks just like the front end of the CMS because I just borrowed the templating from the CMS, because even though it's not the CMS, the template API
This is a
is built
demonstration
into it.
of
So you don't
Ustream
need to use
Producer.
the CMS to get a template, because the CMS is just using an API. And you can see, I'll just show you actually, in UCM, people were are a little bit curious about UCM.
So it's kind of like a wrapper, so with building UI for the platform,
Yes, what is?
UCM.
UCM is a, well, part of it, a small part of it no, UCM is a package. My
demonstration
application
of
is a way
Ustream
of rendering the
Producer.
package, right? So UCM is a way of managing content. It's an API for managing content. And it's actually a set of, I have a whole other talk about UCM, but you can see it online at the J and Beyond, Joomla and Beyond conference. My slides and my video are there. But the UCM as a package is it's just the packages, and you build an application to use it.
This
So,
is a demonstration of
and as you
Ustream
can see,
Producer.
you know, it's a way of handling content. It is a way of handling, it's a way of handling web content. So UCM is designed for use in J application web applications. It's not designed for use in J application CLI applications. It's specifically for web applications. I mean, I'm sure there's use cases, other kinds of use cases where you're going to use some of the, it's a big package,
This
it's a
is a
set of
demonstration
packages.
of
So
Ustream
like some of the
Producer.
object, there's something in it called JDatabase object that probably will end up being useful to a lot of people. But anyway, I'm focusing on web right now. So, so yeah, this was just, this is the famous fruit encyclopedia that you might know from Joomla 2.5 sample content and the photo gallery with the little animals and scenery, right? So those are content types in UCM. So I just thought I'd show
This is a
you. So
demonstration
this is
of
my, you know,
Ustream Producer.
this was me just experimenting with these proposed classes and building a web application using them. So I'm not saying this is totally the ideal way to go about doing this. In fact, I will tell you, I know is not the ideal way of going about using this, because I don't have it set up yet to save. I don't have routing set up. I don't have anything. I just was kind of hacking around with playing with it. Yes?
Since we're on the topic of UCM,
This is a demonstration of Ustream Producer.
Yeah, I know.
that at that time it would just be a few weeks.
A few
before
weeks,
it
I
was
know.
implemented in the platform.
Never believe a developer. Never believe a developer when they say a few weeks. It's in the mail.
Realistically, okay, real world scenario, when do you realistically anticipate that UCM will be available and stable enough?
This is a demonstration of Ustream Producer.
I would say that's a complicated question.
Do you think it might make it for 3.5 or 4.0?
Wait. Well, there's two different issues. Will there be packages? There'll be packages as soon as there are packages. Will it be used in the CMS? No, I don't see any way that the Joomla 3 series, the architectural decisions have been made for Joomla 3. Joomla 3 is now in adding features, polishing,
This is a
finishing the
demonstration
bootstrap
of Ustream
implementation,
Producer.
finishing,
And the platform set.
and the platform is set. Exactly. I mean, we'll update the platform.
In the 3 series, but is there a possibility that it would be 4
Yes.
in the 4 series?
Yes. I would say yes.
And if it is
I would say-
completely rewriting all the content and components, store places and new stuff.
Can I say, I did this in a day.
So we have 2 years before I have to ask this question.
Yeah.
Demonstration
And hopefully
of
Rob is here
Ustream
at that
producer.
time to answer it, not me.
No, you could use it yourself.
You can use it right now.
It's loaded.
You can use it. You can take it right now.
I mean, how
It
practical?
works
I
fantastic.
mean, you're using
It's
it here,
fantastic.
playing around with it, but is it practical to use?
Oh
I guess
yes,
that's
they're using it at eBay right now, right? It's very practical. It's really well written. It's darn, they're
This is a
taping. It's in
demonstration
that
of
developer
Ustream
limbo
producer.
where they're like, it's not perfect. We need to make it better before we put it into the platform. And
Where is the work being done on it? And is there a repository that you can see the
eBay, well, no. There should be. Right now, the current code base for it is old. Now, it's been there for a while that I used here. This uses this one. I have two UCM applications. One was
demonstration of
before the new
Ustream
MVC and one
producer.
was after. This is the after. So the first one I wrote used the old MVC. So the whole thing to really implement UCM requires the new MVC, which we're not using in the CMS, and it requires it requires some other kind, like it'll need the new caching. It works fine, the cache works fine now with it, but it handles cache in a different way. And so there's a lot of other pieces that to make it really
This is a
sing need to all be in
demonstration of
place.
Ustream
So
producer.
the J content by itself, I think people are probably being a little overdramatic about how it's not really going to change that much. In my opinion, this is totally my opinion. In my opinion, we should just fork the code that is there and begin building Joomla 4 on that right now. That's like a different talk, but that's my opinion because I think it's excellent code and we can all, the beauty of the modularity of the whole thing
This
is
is a
that
demonstration
if something
of
better comes
Ustream
along in the
producer.
next 18 months, we can plug it right in. And I think the CMS needs slightly different thing. The cool thing about UCM is that, see, they defined a table for the core content table, but as the CMS, we actually have some really specific needs in the core content table that are different maybe than the most universal needs. So the great thing is we're going to be able to extend the J content to have the table we need, and we can drop fields we don't need, and we can add fields we do need, and we can think about
Ustream producer.
some of the fields the platform is mandating, we can not use them. So, that's what's great about it, actually. Yes.
I don't think you're going to get this. How would you handle ACL with the platform?
The ACL is part of the platform.
Right, so you do that on command line?
What do you mean?
If I want to add users and give them permissions, how would I do that at the command line?
This is
You mean like in a
demonstration
CLI?
Of Ustream
You would just write a
producer.
CLI to add users, and you would give them permission. You would put them in groups, and you would put them in groups, and you would give them a password, and
Yeah.
yeah, you would borrow the code from the CMS. That is exactly what you would do. It's written, it's there, you just steal it, you put it in a command line.
Since you brought up authentication, as somebody that wants to use the platform.
Yeah. See, you are a perfect case of someone who should be using the platform,
This
just
is
like
a
David.
demonstration of Ustream producer.
I'll use, Event Registration Pro and the CRM that he's got.
Yeah.
As perfect examples, if we wanted to port our extensions to a standalone product.
Yeah.
Applications like those have to have authentication.
Yes.
Why is that not in the core? Because I can see that being very crucial.
So authentication is an application. But, so exactly. I mean, this is why I said earlier, we need building block.
This is a
We need building
demonstration of
blocks.
Ustream producer.
Written ours as an application.
Yeah.
That was one of the biggest hurdles we had to overcome, was if we wanted to use Joomla authentication, at that point you bring in the plugin system.
Exactly.
At that point, you have all these different legacy items that have to now be included in your code to use that. We've kind of been stepping through those hurdles as a way, because we did want to use the same authentication.
Yeah.
class,
Around
but
that, in my opinion, I don't think.
I
we
agree completely.
Right.
have to be there.
Right.
And that's something that we've had some pretty, internally, modeling.
This is a
some pretty big
demonstration
discussions about
of Ustream
vision for
Producer.
it. And I think it's because it's been splitting apart. And
Right.
so they haven't fully gotten everything separate out. The
Right. And what is where, exactly. I keep saying, I say to the platform maintainers all the time, they don't like it, but I'm like, authentication, we need authentication. We need an example, like forget these stupid hello world. I mean, it was fine for the first few months, but now we need a sample authentication application. That's number one.
This is a
And then user
demonstration
management
of
is number
Ustream
two.
Producer.
So that to me, basically, you know, because what happens is, and you know, it's all based on people scratching their itches, right? So if you're writing there's a lot of applications that don't need authentication. If you're just the poll tester doesn't use authentication, right? If you go to the Joomla, you know, repository and you read about where we're automatically running continuous integration and you read your test results, no one has to log in, it's public. The only person who ever
This
has
is a
to log in to
demonstration
do
of
anything is just
Ustream
if they change the
Producer.
configuration, and they're just going to the command line and editing that file directly, because it's not like you're logging in to write an article or add something to a database, you're just changing the configuration. But although I think the next one but the next one is configuration. We need an application for configuring.
I've got a topic in that I'll be speaking at the World Conference.
Yeah.
It's on this, and that's actually one of my points that we're actually going to
This
dig
is a
into
demonstration
pretty deeply
of
as far as
Ustream
showing how we
Producer.
overcame that and what our recommendations are to kind of move that into more of a core structure. So there's
Yeah.
not any hacking that is going on, but you have to rewrite an authentication system.
We should not have to rewrite. We should have some, it's not,
Right,
see the thing is, this is like a borderline thing between the platform and a full-blown application, right? Building this is what we're,
What we need is, you know, you look at it, we've got, the CMS is like the platform,
Right.
the application on the platform. And there are things within
This
the
is a
platform, but then I
demonstration
think that
of
there are
Ustream
utility
Producer.
applications
Exactly.
that everybody makes.
and that's,
These
in-
utility applications
from my
are created.
perspective, the way Joomla 4 should be, the CMS number 4 should be, is really moving to a set of these utility applications, and the administrator basically becomes the dashboard for coordinating them, for configuring, for scheduling, for for managing data, but it's not, the back end, the administrator is not for creating content and stuff, it's for managing all these separate
This is a
applications.
demonstration of
So, and maybe
Ustream
there's something
Producer.
else that's, that was one idea a long time ago, is that really there need to be like 3 interfaces, but anyway, that's like a different issue. But I just think that if we modularize it, that also makes it easier to develop. So like maybe you write an authentication thing that you would want to share, right? That it doesn't have all your secret sauce, but it has some of it, that's enough for people to share. And that helps, because I think all of us benefit when people in the world are using the platform. So, because if more people are using the Joomla platform,
is a
then they want to use
demonstration
your
of
platform.
Ustream
If they're already
Producer.
on the Joomla platform and they need a CRM, they can use your CRM. If they need an event scheduler, they can get they have the platform already, they can come and they can get Mike's events, right? So it's like it's just like the extension model, but at a slightly lower level. And this is the thing that people need to kind of see, is that there's going to be these more complex things that are not content management.
This is a demonstration
Authentication
of
is
Ustream
not
Producer.
content management, and so it's not really inherently part of a content management system. So like we can have content management as an application using JContent that is just focused on content management. This is, as an application, it does not have to worry about authentication, because you're going to have a separate thing taking care of authentication. And this is one of the problems in the CMS, why people kind of say it's bloated, is that saying, okay, oh, I have commenting code, great. It's like, okay, we're just going to go ahead, and my thing is called Simple Application Web. So I'm just going to load up J application web and get the instance of my application and execute it. And of course, I'm going to include the bootstrapping for the one thing about Bootstrap, incorporating Twitter Bootstrap, is, I hated the fact
This
that
is
in
a
Joomla we use the same
demonstration of
words to mean 2
Ustream
different things.
Producer.
So we have to always remember there's Bootstrap and with a capital B, and there's Bootstrap with a little b. So And one of the things I think that's interesting, I'm kind of assuming people have looked at the bootstrap file before, but that's basically where your defines are. And this JLoader is really kind of the key to all the loader prefix, the loader
This is a
for the auto loading.
of Ustream
And
Producer.
then also registering a prefix simple for my application. So I'm going to have that.